we're going to have A sub n equals, and then the population is decreasing by 20% each month. So, what should I multiply last month's fish population by? What? 0.8. Why not 0.2? That's the number that are no longer with us, right? We want to know the fish that are still there, right? But you will have this many fish, but what else do they do at the end of the month? They add 100 fish. So we're going to add 100 here. And what is our A sub 0? 250. That's our initial population. Okay? So we could do this by hand. It would take forever. The spreadsheet really helps us do this more quickly. Month and fish population. So for your months, just 0, 1, 2. If you highlight this, drag down the blue box, it will fill in the rest for you. And then, what should I put in this first box for fish population? 250. In the second box in my fish population column, here's where I want to put my recursive formula, right? So I will put equals, because anytime you are doing a formula in a spreadsheet, you have to start it with equals. We will do 0.8 times, if I click up here, it'll tell it B2, plus 100, and then you're going to hit enter. So you should get 300 there. And then you can either click the check for autofill, or mine won't let me do it because I've zoomed in too much. So if I just drag that down, it should populate for me there. You're not getting those numbers? Make sure you have 250 in this one, right? Okay. Make sure your formula looks like this, equals 0.8 times B2 plus 100. Okay? Then you want to click, does your first cell or second cell right there say 300? Okay, click on it and it only. Grab that. Yeah, it'll alternate if you do that because it's copying like either one. So only click on the one that's got the formula for that one. Any questions? Once you get this set up, the next two questions are pretty simple to answer. Make sure whenever you do this, you click on the cell with the formula in it, and only the cell with formula in it. Don't highlight anything else, and then drag that blue box in the corner down. We'll see here in a second. All right, so 1 year is 12 months. We are getting 482.82. Does it make sense to have 0.82 of a fish? No, so we would say about 483 fish. All right, so after a year, you would have about 483 fish in this pond. So in the long run, over time, if you scroll down, what do you see happening to these numbers?
500.
It looks like they just keep getting closer and closer to 500, right? So our population, much like our medicine the other day, it's leveling out there at 500. So about 500 fish. So if I ask a general question like that, and I don't give a specific time, I say in the long run or over time, what is the population of the fish going to be? That means it probably should level out. If it's not leveling out, you've probably done something wrong there. So I think this is so cool because Now, obviously, if you are just like Big Jim that has the catfish pond in your backyard, you probably are not keeping spreadsheets on the number of fish and all of these things. But when you're talking about monitoring populations, so like biologists that work where they are studying the population of these fish or the ecosystem, this is something that they would really be interested in, because if you're thinking like Fish and Wildlife Services needing to keep populations steady, they don't want fish to become extinct. They also don't want fish to go out of control, right? Which typically is not going to happen that often with native species, but if you have invasive species come in, so if they bring in an invasive species of fish, it can take over the lake where you have excessive amounts of this fish. So this, could be used for monitoring. This is particularly helpful in like a situation where these fish are actually fished out of the lake and then restocked there. So if you were studying something like this would be helpful to monitor, because if you want to have about 500 fish in the pond, then you could sort of figure what you need to do here. Now, you would have to do a lot of estimating, because they're probably not able to like count every little fish that's in the pond, right? So they might have to take like a survey of certain areas and then use that. If the lake is this big, they might have to multiply that and make assumptions about how many fish are there. It would be a lot less exact than the situation I'm giving you if you were actually out in the field. But this math here could be applied, so it's pretty cool. All right, now this is what I call a naked problem here. It has no context whatsoever. We're going to see some of these, so I threw this one in here because you need to know how to do it. It's a little less interesting, but it is something that we do. It's in our curriculum that we have to know for this. So we are given a recursive formula. It's a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus 3n minus 1. It is a recursive formula, but it's almost like a hybrid recursive formula, because we got our a sub n minus 1 right here, but we also have an n over here. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different than the ones you have done so far, because you definitely did several of these where it said, like a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus 7, and it gave you a sub 1, and it asked you for a sub 10. And, all right, you just had to plug in and find that. These are a little bit trickier, but it's the same concept. Okay, so it tells us the first term is 2. If it says first term, we're going to call that a sub 1. What I'll try to do on the quiz or test is just call it a sub 1, so there's no question there whether it's a sub 0 or a sub 1. So if a sub 1 is 2, we want to find the next 4 terms in the sequence. Okay, so right here, what does my n equal whenever I'm talking about a sub 1? What does n equal? It equals 1, right? It's your subscript. Your subscript is your n. So when n equals 2, I'm talking about a sub 2. So for the first 1 or 2, I'm going to go overboard on explaining how this works. And you're going to see like a pattern where you don't have to show all of this work each time. So this formula right here is a sub n minus 1 plus 3 times n minus 1. So if my n is 2, it means that I replace all of my n's with 2's, right? So that will be a sub 2 minus 1 plus 3 times 2 minus 1. So all I did there is I took this n right here and this n right here, and I replaced both of those with 2's. So right here, when I do 2 minus 1, what do I get? I get 1. So this is a sub 1 plus 6 minus 1. What is a sub 1? It is 2. So 2 plus 6 minus 1 is going to give us 8 minus 1, which is going to be 7. So a sub 2 equals 7. Now it asks us to find the next 4 terms in the sequence, so we got to do this again, right? In fact, I might change it to 3 just because it might be a lot. But so if I want, that was my next term. I need 2 more here. So if I want n equals 3, I'm finding a sub 3. All right. Again, I'm still kind of going overkill on showing every little step here.
So if we're doing for the next 3 terms, this would be the last one, right?
It says next 3 terms, so you need a sub 2, a sub 3, and a sub 4. Yeah.
So a sub 1 doesn't count since it already given.
Right, since it's given. Yeah. Probably the way I'll word it on a quiz or a test so that it is not, well, first of all, on a quiz or test, I'll probably only ask you for 1 number to make it easier to type in. And I probably won't ask you for a sub 2. I'll give you a sub 1, and I might ask for a sub 4. So you'll still have to do all of this work to get a sub 4, but it'll be very clear which one you have to give as your answer. So here, all my n's become 3's this time. So it's going to be 3 minus 1 plus 3 times 3 minus 1. So everything that was in this formula here, all the n's become 3's because now we're looking for a sub 3. Now you should be noticing what happens here. What is 3 minus 1? 2 plus 9 minus 1. What is a sub 2? 7. That is going to give us, so 16 minus 1, so we get 15 here. So a sub 3 is 15. So this stuff right here, this a sub 3 minus 1 became a sub 2, which was 7. That a sub n minus 1 just means the term before it, right? So we don't necessarily have to show that work every time. So whenever I look for a sub 4, so when my n equals 4 and I'm finding a sub 4, okay, I need a sub n minus 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. I'm looking for a sub 3, right? It's the one that, the term that came before it. What was that? It was 15 right here, right? So if you skip that step and you just go straight to saying that a sub n minus 1 was 15, the term that came before it, perfectly fine, in fact, preferred. Plus 3 times our n, right here would be 4 minus 1. And so we'll get 15 plus 12 minus 1. So 27 minus 1 will give us 26. So our next 3 terms would be 7, 15, 26. I marked it out and made it 3 just so we didn't have to do quite so much work. Right. Right, because this is next 3 terms. Now, this is the only way you can do this. You cannot turn that into an explicit formula because it's got the a sub n minus 1 and the 3n. So this is the only way you can do this problem. You've got to do it step by step. It's similar. Now you'll have to do some of these by hand because I want you to be able to do them both ways. I guess I could show you this right here. We could do n and a sub n. I'm going to put 1 here is 2. Like here, 2, 3. You could use a spreadsheet if it was allowed. It's not going to be, but it just to show you it would make life easier. You could do equals. You would have to do a sub n minus 1, which would be the one before it, plus 3 times, what would I click on to get n? What would n be? I need to click on this one beside it. Oh, and it didn't work, did it? Let me call it A3. Oh, that's because I need a 3 times A3 minus 1. And so you copy that down. So if you needed more. So if you ever had to do this where the spreadsheet was allowed, then you could do it this way. But you will see some of these where you can't use the spreadsheet. So. All right. Okay.
Are we going to have any problems on our test that we got?
You will not have spreadsheet problems on your test. There is going to be a project instead. Mostly because there is no way for me to embed that spreadsheet into a test. Basically, there's no way for me to give you spreadsheet problems without also giving you access to the whole entire internet while you're taking this test, which I'm against doing. So we're going to do a project instead that will count in the test section along with your test. So it's not going to be as many points. I'll explain it all later after we go over this. But you won't have this on your test part, mainly just because of the limitations of me allowing you to use the spreadsheet there. But you will have a project. Okay, so we have an equation given to us. It gives the amount of money that a person still owes on their mortgage. If they initially owed $120,000, I don't know how much they owe after 1 year, how much they owe after 5 years, and how long it will take for them to pay off their loan. This is a really good one for you to know how to do, because probably not too many of you right now have loans in your name, because probably banks will not give you loans in your name right now because you are teenagers that don't have good jobs or credit thus far, which is fine. But hopefully you guys are all going to get good jobs one day and be able to get loans for things, although I will say it's best, we're going to see here in a second, if you can pay for something cash, it's so much better. But at least houses, most people are not able to come up with cash to buy the house straight out. There's some people, but most people have to finance at least their house. Lots of people finance their cars as well. Some people finance dumb things like TVs and vacuum cleaners. Rainbow vacuum cleaner. I have a friend that financed the rainbow vacuum cleaner. Don't finance small things that you don't have to have. It costs you lots of extra money, and you can just save up the money instead and buy it later. Now, maybe there's an emergency, your refrigerator goes out and you're broke. You might have, it's best to try not to get in the situation where you got to finance the refrigerator, but I understand you probably need a refrigerator at your house, and if there is no money, you might have to finance it. But if it's small items, just save up the money and pay for it in cash. When I say cash, it might be with your debit card, but don't buy it on credit. But large purchases often have to be bought on credit because nobody has that money to start with. So first I want us to think about what is happening here. Okay, so first of all, this I should have added, to be clear about this, N is your number of months. So I did not put that in the problem, but I probably should have. N is number of months. Okay, so whenever you guys all go to college, finish up, or whatever you do after school, some sort of whatever, you go get a wonderful job that you love, and you get out of school, and it comes time for you to make one of those big first purchases. In this case, a $120,000 home. Which used to be a pretty decent starter home. In this economy, house prices have gone through the roof, so I don't know if that'll get you much right now. But I know my sister, her house cost her, I think it was about $180,000 whenever they bought it. They've had it 7 years, and they just sold it back in July, and sold it I think they listed it for $300,000. They sold it for over asking and sold it in like 4 or 5 days. She lives in Clemens, so that might be a little higher than it might be around here. But so I'd say right now, even though prices are coming back down because they're raising interest rates, so it's on the decline again. But I'd say right now that's probably more like 220, 250, somewhere in that range. This house, to me, it's still a $120,000 house, and I would have such a hard time paying this amount of money for it. But like my grandpa is 95, and he used to. Well, this has been like 20 years ago, but still, minimum wage was $7.25. You could go get. It's still $7.25, but not too many people work for minimum wage right now. Even fast food places and stuff are paying you a little more than that. But at the time, if you got a fast food job, you were making $7.25. My grandpa, who is now 95, I guess he was like, younger at the time, but still, he was not young. He would pay my brother and my cousins to pack lumber at the sawmill. Minimum wage was $7.25. He'd pay him $4 an hour. $4. Which I don't know if that's legal or not. I know it's not legal if they're not your family. It might be legal if it's your family. I'm not sure. And they were probably they might have been too young to work too. So, which again I think might be legal if they're your family, but not if they're not your family. I'm not even sure. I'm not 100% sure about the legality of this. I am sure he probably didn't care about the legality of it at the time. But, to him, $4 was a lot of money. That was way more than, he got paid. I'm starting to become like that, I think. Like, there's things that the price has gone up on, and I'm like, no, I can't. That's ridiculous. I can't pay that. No. And, it is what it costs. Of course, everything's skyrocketed right now. It's all happened so fast. But sometimes I'm just like, no thanks. We went to Nashville this summer, and we went to this, food court area. Some of you guys that went to Nashville might have went. It was really cool. Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, it was really cool. Yes, that. And Henry was like, oh, Mom, I want some of this cotton candy. And so we go over to the little cotton candy thing, and they have these little things of cotton candy. They're this big. And I couldn't find it on the menu, and there was nobody waiting. So I was like, how much is the cotton candy? And she's like, $8. For this cotton candy, it was this big. At the fair, it cost you like $2 for a bag. I was like, no thank you. We'll go on. I could not pay $8 for this tiny container of air and sugar. So I'm becoming like this. But that's a total side note. We need to get back to work. Let's talk about what's happening here. What's this number telling us? What's happening? Okay, it's being multiplied, and it's a number bigger than 1. So what's that tell me is happening? Growth. So, in terms of loans, what is that? It's our interest, right? So it would be 0.4% interest. But that is per month. Because, okay, so if we multiply it by 12, 0.4 times 12, what do we get there? We get 4.8. Yeah, 4.8 per year. So right now that would be good. Because interest rates are on their way back up. I think they're like 6 or 7% maybe right now. I'm not sure about specifically for home loans, but so right now that would be good. There's been times where it would be a little high. I think whenever we financed our house, we had like 4.2, somewhere in that ballpark. So this is your interest rate they're charging you every month on what you owe. What's this? Minus $950. That's your payment. Let me give you a warning. This payment is less than what you're actually going to have to pay. Because whenever you owe money on a house, they are going to make you put your insurance, your home insurance, and your taxes included in what they call escrow, because the bank owns that house. So they're going to require you to have insurance, because if it burns to the ground, they need to know that it's going to get replaced, right? Because they own a big chunk of that house, especially in the beginning, right? So they're going to require you to have insurance, and you also have to pay the taxes, because if you don't pay the taxes on your house, the government comes and takes your house away from you. Again, the bank owns a big chunk of the house, so they're going to make sure the taxes get paid on that house, because they do not want the government to come take it from you. So this would be $950 that these people are paying on the principal, like on the amount that they owe. Their actual payment would probably be, if I'm estimating based off of what I pay, at least $200 or $300 more than that. So they would be paying, but that would include insurance and taxes that you don't have to pay separately. But this is how much they're paying on their principal. So this is their payment. So if we make ourselves a spreadsheet for this, let's put our months in. And I'm going to put balance, because that means how much. It could mean how much is in the account. It could mean how much you still owe on the account, depending on whether you're talking about savings or loans in this case. Months are just how we have been doing everything. 0, 1, 2, 3. Drag it down. You're going to need to drag it down pretty far, because it takes a long time to pay off a house. Yeah, so whenever when you're doing this, highlight a few rows and then drag it down, because you didn't do it with the formula there. If it's not with the formula, you need to do it so it'll recognize the pattern. You could do it with a formula, but you don't have to. All right, so they initially owed $120,000. Also, probably the house is actually not a $120,000 house, because generally they like for you to put money down on the house. Ideally, you got at least 20% to put down. If you don't have at least 20%, you got to add mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance, at least on our house, was like $90 a month for nothing. That's like insurance for the bank, where if you don't pay off your loan, and the house is going down in value, that mortgage insurance covers it. So if you can save 20% of the value of the house, that keeps you from paying mortgage insurance. It is good to do that. I told you guys the other day I bought a car right out of college, and we also bought a house that needed like a few things done to it. So if we bought a different house that was ready to move into, we probably would have had a lot more to put down, but we needed to save some to fix up a few things around the house. So that also hurt us on that. So we had to pay mortgage insurance for a little while there, but we're way out of that now. We're doing good now. In case you're worried about my financial situation. All right, so here we're just going to put in our formula, 1.004. Instead of A sub n minus 1, we just click on the cell before it. That puts our B2 minus 950. If you hit enter. So you see, after that first month, look at what's happening here. This is frustrating. After the first month, you paid the bank $950. Correct? All right. Now, how much did we drop here? We got 120,000
470
minus 470. All right? So you paid them $950. But it only took $470 off of what you owed. Because the rest of it was all interest. If you had just saved up all your $120,000 cash first and paid for the house in cash, you would not have to pay that interest, any of it. Interest is expensive, and this is not even a bad interest rate right now. So let's drag this down and see what happens over time.
Now they're like 6%.
Yeah. They are. House prices are high and interest is 6%. It is not a great time to buy a house. It is really, like, a couple months ago was a great time to sell a house. As long as you didn't need to buy another house to live in.
You were able to sell one and not buy.
Yeah, if you can sell one and not buy a house, like if you have an extra house, like if you have a rent house or something, a couple months ago was the perfect time to sell it because prices were super high and people were buying them fast.
Well, that was a year ago for us.
But yeah, you guys still probably timed it pretty good. You didn't hit like the highest high,
Yeah.
but you still probably timed it pretty good on
Maybe
selling.
It was sort of like almost twice as much.
Yeah. So, but right now is a horrible time to buy a first house. Because if you are buying a first house, prices are high, interest rates are going up, is not good. Although, you know, you do have to have a place to live. There could be an argument it's still better than paying rent, which you don't get anything for because at the end of renting, you just have nothing to show for it. Other than you had a house or a place to live, which is also important. But over, you know, if you have something to sell, it's still not horrible because if you sell something, you're getting a high price for it, and then you're putting that towards another house, so it's not as bad. But anyway, so look what's happening here. We want to know how much they owe after a year. So after a year, here at 12 months, you still owe $114,234.25. Okay, let's figure this up here. You just paid 12 payments of $950. So $950 times 12 is, oh, I didn't type that in wrong, right, times 12. It's going to be, you paid $11,400. Okay, but if I do 120,000 minus 1,114, 234,025 cents, you only paid off $5,765.75. So over half of what you paid went to pay for interest, right there. So that cost a lot of money that you're just paying the bank to borrow their money. The answer is here. This is what you still owe. I'm just pointing out here. I'm pointing out that you paid over $11,000, but it only took $5,765.75 off of what you owed. So a lot of that went to interest. Okay, 5 years is going to be 60 months. So if we scroll down to that. After 5 years, you're getting in a little bit better shape. You owe $88,199.72. Okay, so that's how much you owe after 5 years. I'm not going to go through, but we could do 950 times the 60, see how much we paid, see how that compares to what we actually have taken off of our interest bill. Just make us sad. So we're not going to right now. All right. So then the last question says, how long will it take them to pay off their loan? So we just need to go down here till we start seeing some negatives, right? Because if we start getting down to negatives, that means, you know, really we wouldn't go past that. The bank doesn't start paying you money. I guess you can reverse mortgage it, but that's not a good idea. Unless you're old. But so we got so you know, at 176 months, you still owe $269.06. So you will have to pay like a little bit that last month. So we'll just say 177 months. Okay, all right. All right, now let's change that to years so that we got an idea.
It's 14 years.
14.75 years. Now, that's not bad. Paying off your house in 15 years is pretty good. a lot of people do 30-year mortgages on their houses. So that's not too bad for paying off this house. If you did a 30-year mortgage, you would have a lower payment, but you would have to pay it for 30 years, and it would end up costing you more in the long run. Now, I didn't ask this question, but we need to think about it because this is important for your financial well-being one day. Let's think about how much did they pay for the house, or did they pay for the house plus the financing? Right. So that's how much they paid overall. They were paying $950 a month. They did $950 a month for, really technically, if we want to be precise here, 176 months, right? Because right here at 176, they just owed $269.06. So $950 times 176 plus 269.06. And so 950 times 176 plus 269.06. They pay $167,469.06. The house, they only borrowed $120,000. So that's like $47,469 that they paid in interest. It's almost $48,000 in interest. Probably not, but I'm just wanting to show you how I'm preparing you for life right here, guys. Now, that's paying this off in 15 years, which is pretty good for a house, with an interest rate that you're not going to get right now. So let's just make this more current times realistic.
So you're only paying more.
Let's change that. First of all, you're not going to get the same house for $120,000. It's going to cost, let's say it's $200,000 for the exact same house that a few years ago cost $120,000. So let's say we're starting with that. And if we're doing 6% interest, if you do 0.06 divided by 12, you're going to get 0.005 right here. So we would change this to 0.005. And so if I change this and drag this down, oh no, I've ran out of room. Oh wait, okay, so first of all, in today's current climate, you're not going to be able to have a $950 payment, because what's happening to my numbers? They're going up. You're not even paying enough to pay the interest if your payment is only $950. The bank wouldn't let you do that. The bank would make you pay enough so that it's paying it off. So let's just go with like $1,300. So now we're paying a $1,300 payment. Okay, there we finally reach it. Oops. Okay. So if it was right now with 6% interest, a $200,000 house, if I made a $1,300 payment, it would take 294, almost right at 294 months. 294 divided by 12 is 24.5, so 24 and a half years. 294 times 1,300 would be $382,000 you'd have to pay for that house. That's a $200,000 house. That is realistic. That is not. So you would pay $180. You would almost pay double the price of the house because you're financing it.
I think my parents told me that they're locked in at their interest rate.
Yes.
Like below 2%.
When you get an interest rate, you can either do a variable rate interest rate or you can do a fixed rate interest rate. So when interest rates are low, you want to do fixed, because that your parents have got a fixed rate. So they got in when the interest rate was low at 2%. So theirs will be 2% for the whole time of the loan. So the interest rates going up do not affect them. If you do a variable rate, if interest rates go up, your interest rate goes up. So maybe when you were paying $1,300, now you got to pay $1,500. Which is, so you want to not get variable if you can help it. Mine is fixed also. So
could you start variable since the prices were high, so you weren't locked in at the...
you could start variable. I don't know if we're high enough that you would want to do that yet. I know my parents bought their house in like early 80s, and their interest rate was like 12 or 13%. Interest rates were through the roof. So I think they did have variable because they were super high, and then you can refinance your house later. So if interest rates drop later, you can refinance, but it does cost like a certain percentage of what you owe every time you refinance, and it's like it can cost you like $4,000 or $5,000 to refinance. If the interest rate drops enough, it's still worth it because it's going to save you money in the long run. But yes, so if you usually want to get a fixed rate unless interest rates are really high. I don't know if we're high enough anybody would advise you to get a variable right now. I'm not sure because I'm not a realtor or a banker, but definitely when they're low, you want to get a fixed rate so that you get locked in at that low rate. So like mine is 4.2 or somewhere around there, and it'll stay that for until we pay off the loan. So that is good because it's going back up right now. Although I could have refinanced when it dipped, but I didn't. It wasn't a huge difference in what it would have saved me, but I should have. But now refinancing is off the table because it would just be way worse if I did that. So this is realistic. The ways that you can avoid paying nearly twice what your house costs for the house is you can save up some of the money so you have a bigger down payment. So maybe the house costs $200,000, but you have $60,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 to put down on it. Then you don't have to borrow as much money, so that helps you. The bigger you make your payments, the quicker you pay it off. So the bank might tell you that you only have to pay $950 a month. But if you pay $1,200 a month instead, when you do that, that comes off of your principal. So it'll pay off your loan quicker. You won't have to pay as much in interest. So those are ways that you can avoid having to pay double what your house is worth.
I don't have to worry about this right now.
Yeah, but hopefully, you guys got a little while till you guys are going to be buying houses. I think. I'm pretty sure none of you are going to be buying one in the next year or two. Hopefully, whatever's going to happen is going to settle back down into something a little more normal, and not get crazy. You guys probably got at the least probably about 6 years till you'll be house buying, and maybe even longer than that, depending on your circumstances. So this is information for you to know for your grown-up life that is important, because financing costs a lot of money. Some people only care about what their payment is going to be, and they're like, if I can make that payment, it doesn't matter to me. But you end up paying a ton of money. This is true for cars. This is true for anything you finance, unless they're giving you a 0% financing rate, which does not happen very often. So anything that you finance, this is happening. So be careful with it. All right. So that is it for our notes right here.